Mike is empty?
No, I'm not.
I already got it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Are you sure?
He doesn't like my food.
No, I take that. No, that's not true because you know, I probably would change my mind if you had what you had the other day. So.
Oh, this is something new?
What?
Oh, you got lasagna.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm really trying to limit like my bread intake, which pasta is part of that too. But I'm really trying to.
Are you going to get all keto and spelt?
I need to start doing that stuff.
I respect that, Mike.
Yeah, I really need to. My bread intake is really bad.
I can only do that if I can hold my bread.
Yeah, see, it doesn't work.
I have to be like, no.
And bourbon, by the way, is keto friendly.
Yes, it is. Bourbon, I mean, I love bourbon, but how is it keto friendly?
Because it doesn't have the same, it doesn't have the carbohydrates and stuff in it. That, yeah, the way it's distilled is different.
Oh my gosh, this is funny. The children took all the chocolate out of this bag and they left all the nerds.
Yeah.
Smart people.
There you go.
Oh, you're right. You like nerds? Do you want to try some honey?
Yes, I'm a kid. I'm small like that.
There's one French bar. Anyone want to claim it?
Hey, Mike, I love French bar.
Yep.
Yeah, I did keto before when I was,
Anyone
when I
else
was
want
in
some
the
holiday
military.
nerds?
I think for chocolate.
Yeah. I can eat
So if you do that
sweet, hard,
and work
okay,
out,
that's things I don't really like. I
I
like really good old-fashioned licorice, you know, like the, like they can get a big bar.
So my son, he doesn't work. Everyone started to eat like this is the first and he wants like
yeah, you replenish your body the way your body actually stores it.
Huh? Yep. So Kate just text, no problem. Oh. Hi, Kate. I'm talking now to see if the live stream is on. So if it is, if you would just text me a thumbs up, since I'm not back by the computer.
And not the first stick. So the first stick you have is almost like alcohol when you just like cut all the carbs out, right? For about 10 days, when you get into like say 7 to 10, you feel like you're dying because your body's breaking carbohydrates. And then your body switches over fuel that. But it needs to be find a good multivitamin. Keep those vitamins long in the system, especially like the ones that your body kicks out really quick.
I'm going to do this so you guys can all come up and talk to the people on the live stream and share your input without touching the board. So there is a feature on YouTube right now that you can, like, in the live chat be like, hey, swords are here. Like, there's some people for sure that do, like, if they're on every week, they say, peace be with you, like on the, however, on the new website, which is coming on January 31st, the live stream will be right there on the front page, so you just hit it, you don't have to go to YouTube, and you can just watch it. And then on the website, not on YouTube, is like Trinity Chat. Are you like sending YouTube to your TV, like doing the cast? Oh, right, because you got smart TV. Then you can probably get on the Trinity website and do that same thing. Mm-hmm.
You have the YouTube app on your TV, right? I think it's
Oh, so it's not the same thing.
You have to turn your TV into a monitor, and it will pull it up. Because I don't think. Yeah, if your TV has the little browsing feature, which I'm sure it does.
JP would know because he's a rocket scientist. He knows that. Rick should know that too.
But either way, yeah, you can upload
Oh, wait. So, hello. Okay, so we're going to start, and I know there's a handful of you watching us. So hello, thank you. And if you're watching this later, thank you for watching it later, and thank you for being part of the conversation. Okay, Patsy says it's just my voice only. You can't see me, Pats? Actually, seeing me is over. I know, right? I look the very same that I looked this morning. Okay, I'm going to keep talking, and I'll let Kate kind of work on it. Hey, Mike, yeah, thank you. Can you just see if it looks like the cameras are working?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's working.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Oh, she's saying nope. Okay. Oh, Karen says she can see me. So maybe log in and log out again, Pats. I mean, like go off of YouTube and then go back on, and then maybe it'll work. Because Karen can see it on the live stream. Okay, so our friends from the different missional communities that are here with us today just broke out into small groups to talk about the questions that hopefully you guys at home also have, really assessing where you are and where your missional community is. And we're going to do an abbreviated little teaching time, Becky and I, about some of these things to try to move us as all the people who are passionate about missional life to really assess, like, okay, what's great that we can keep doing, what needs a little retooling, and what do we need to just recreate or branch out or have. So that's kind of our goal, really not at the end of today, but to really gather all the conversation and information that we need today, and I would say over the next week or so, if you're not with us, to answer these questions for us and get them to Becky or me, and then we'll kind of meet again maybe with the leaders before Lent, which is coming up really fast, but to really assess, okay, which groups are still active, and I think I put out there, but I've sent 45,000 emails this week, that we would like to, during Lent sometime, have kind of a missional community Sunday where there's really a chance for every group to come and we've done this before, right? But to come and share stories and share pictures, and if that day is a celebration of a relaunching, or if it's really a celebration of life of that missional community, to say, thanks be to God for what we did for the years that we did it, and then now it's going to look like this, and there's actually, in our group, you know, they're going to go this way and this way, or whatever, and we'll talk about that more in a, but I just wanted, if one person from each group would just share a brief summary of what you guys talked about in the breakout groups for everyone that is watching at home, that would be awesome. So who would like to go first? Karen Talley from the Mac Monday Missional Community.
It's our Mac Monday. It's another Mac Monday member. So our mission started, we're figuring 5 or 6 years ago at least. And over this past year or two, we've really seen a change in the membership and the people we serve. So we're really at a place where we're thinking we need probably to revision what our mission looks like. I don't think, not just I, our group does not think it can continue in the same vein that it has been. We still want to serve people, but I think that we're going to have to look at how do we do it differently and listen to what God's calling is for us, because really that's why we're here, that's why we're serving. Thanks.
Short person. Sure. Yeah. I've gotten so much better about not touching my face during all of this, but it's still a challenge. Okay, so open hearts, open hands, missional community, and as I say that, we're wondering, is it time for a name change? We like our name, but we're not sure how open that feels to lots of people, or what does that mean? We're one of those groups that it's kind of a odd
You see us
topic.
talking, but I'm going to turn you up a little bit because I feel like.
And can you stand a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, as soon as I wipe it on. Is this good for microphones?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be good. I can do this breakdown and this is great.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that was one of our questions that came up as I say it is, maybe it's time for a name change. We definitely felt like as a group, and 2 of our members sent in their answers to the questions by email to the group before we got together, so we had and we called Rick, so we had a good group of who all was inputting for our group. We feel like there's definitely still a passion for our group and that we want to continue forward. In fact, praying with people, open hearts, open hands. It's the healing prayer group. And therefore, maybe it's a time to kind of describe ourselves so that people know what we are. It's a group that we feel like we're still just getting comfortable with this ourselves, as people of traditional kind of denomination, praying out loud. I certainly didn't grow up doing that, and so we're still ourselves getting comfortable with it. And then you add in the healing touch piece for those of us that have been trained in that takes even longer to get comfortable with. So we feel like we have a lot of room to grow. So we're going to push forward, but with maybe a more open. We're not sure how to make that feel like it's more comfortable to just join as you can and come in, and really with a mission or a vision to help everyone be more comfortable praying with other people. So that it's not just us interceding for you, but that everyone can do that. And that really was part of our vision in the beginning anyway, but we feel like maybe that needs to be more pronounced. So, anything else you want to add, Bonnie? Okay. I'll put it back up for the next person.
Right, your twin is here. Right, exactly. All right, so I'm representing Matumaini, which means hope in Swahili, and we started off as a group that was supporting our friends in East Africa and Uganda and Kenya, and then we kind of morphed into a group that's been mentoring refugees, a refugee family from Congo. And I thought we were able to have Andrea and Jean FaceTime in with us, which was really helpful, because I had kind of thought since our family that we had been mentoring had moved, that it might be time for Matumaini to be finished as an MC. But there was actually quite a bit of interest still. JP is still very interested in making sure we're partnering with our East African organizations, that he's still believes that we need to be talking about that again and really looking at the long-term benefits of supporting those organizations. And then Jean and Andrea were talking a lot about how there's still so much current need for refugees, immigrants that are not Spanish speakers, because there are a lot of Spanish-speaking services, but not nearly as many with other language barriers. And so we'll kind of see. We need to regroup in terms of more regular gathering. I think that's one of the things that we, in terms of the structure of the MCs, we weren't always doing so great. Bonnie just started to help us get more involved in doing regular gatherings, and then COVID. So figuring out how to disseminate more information, and on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, let people know what needs are out there could be really helpful for us. Kind of that tweaking question. All right.
Okay, I'm going to just share. So it's recorded, and so our friends that are on camera can hear. So Sue Ross was here, but the only person on site from her group, but she brought Dave. But that is Fostering Hope. And for you guys that don't know, that's the group that partners with foster families and helps give some support and some respite care and, all the gamut of things when they've needed supplies, when they've had new kids coming in, when they, and it's a really, probably, even more than like what we had to do with LFS for training, right? They've got really involved training to be in Fostering Hope, and I think they have to get background checked to have access time with the kids. And so, and there's 4 couples that are still actively involved in that, and they did wrap up the foster family that they've been intimately involved with for the last 2 years. Those kids were actually returned to their biological family, and so, that's a win often sometimes in the system, and but that family is really committed to foster care, and they have such a good relationship with that family, and they said it took so long to really establish trust with them that those 8 folks are super committed to kind of hanging with that family, and they want to get more foster kids, and so then they'll just re-engage with those kids with that family because they're all still connected. And she said that they really talked about there's probably for the capacity of what it's called to do under fostering with the organization, they really could take on 1 more or 2 more people or 1 more couple, but they can't really grow beyond that. And so if it was the kind of thing a little later this spring where lots of people, and we're going to talk about how you identify, do I love those people or do I love that mission in just a minute. But if there were a lot of people who said, man, that's the heartbeat, that's my missional heart, and I want to be part of that, and she said they've often talked about, we could kind of divide and then bring in more people and then take on to, and so that way you've got some people that have done it a long time mentoring and some new people coming in who would be brand new to the program. So I love that idea and that vision of how to keep stepping forward. And then we have Project to Presence, which is led by Patsy and John Yanaba. And I asked her if she wanted to type in, I could say something on her behalf, so let me just check. And Life Stories, and I talked that's Laura Williamson, and Mark Anderson was kind of co-leading that, and he said he definitely was kind of ready for a slightly different missional focus, and Laura's, I would say that group is probably in a real season of retooling, and especially their mission, again, during COVID, is so intimate and contact-based and all the things and I think they had really started, it sounded like they were really honing in on connecting with and ministering to folks at the elder care facility that her daughter, Jess, is the director of, and they had a high number of residents who died during COVID, and so that just is a lot of blows and absolutely no contact, right? And that was where they felt like they were getting some traction, and Patsy texted, a whole thing, okay. So that's Life Stories. And then Project to Presence, Patsy says, we're still moving forward. Thank you, Patsy. We're still moving forward, helping our senior friends, but again, forming lasting friendships so that we are part of their lives. The pandemic has obviously changed our outreach, given the age of the friends that we reach out to and the average age of our MC. We've been able to help as much as possible in this time. Our MC is staying strong and holding each other up during this time, still investigating means of reaching seniors in our community when this crazy time changes. Thank you. That's a good summary. And Sue wanted to say that might, she's just thinking that might be a great potential, kind of pull in some new people that maybe want to be the hands and feet, but maybe don't necessarily want the social aspect, but hey, if there is a project that needs doing during this time, I'm your guy or I'm your girl, I'll go fix a roof, I'll go build a fence, I'll go deliver groceries, and we can talk, right, that's kind of the missional thing that we're going to talk about in just a second. So I think that's everybody. Anyone else that's here have something you want to add to it or something to share that was, yeah.
that the Healing Prayer Group did was be totally consistent. We met the third Tuesday of every month for, I don't know, what, the last 7 years? Long time, but we felt like that was one of our strengths.
Yeah. And I do think I think as we've been having these conversations, especially for the last couple of weeks, I feel like that's the people who still feel very connected, very committed, that's probably the common thread, right? Of either we kept doing something social, even if it was virtual, like Zoom things, or we stayed, consistent to meeting, even if our main missional touch point was not available to us anymore. So, okay. Are we good? Okay. So let's roll into, do you want to, okay, let me just do a little intro, and then I'm going to bring up Becky to talk a little bit about with. And you guys that are here, when I say that, like the kind of missional philosophy of with instead of to or for, how many of you are like, oh yeah, I totally know what you're talking about, and oh good. That makes me happy. But I think, here's my little intro. And I think as we were talking about this, and after the courtyard time and in some staff conversations, and for sure just in my own kind of digging back into missional theory and missional philosophy, and I think most of you know, all of this came out of 3DM, and we were for sure the first learning community that was experiencing kind of the concept of missional communities. And, not surprisingly, we get all excited and we come back from California and like, let's do it. And the book wasn't even written, but we were just so excited about the concept, right? And so I do think there were probably, in retrospect, a number of places that we got out ahead of the theory and the philosophy, and not surprisingly took our own twist on things that may or may not have worked great. And so it does really feel like an important time to sort of acknowledge what was great in doing that, but also acknowledge the things that need to be celebrated and left and rebirthed. And so really I would say if we can hang in there for probably about another 40 minutes, does everyone feel like they can do that? I think we can have conversation and a little activity, and then people can wrap it up for the day. I think that'll accomplish at least what we need to right now. And so before I bring Becky up, so the things I want us to talk about today are kind of, at least get our wheels spinning about spiritual family on mission and what that looks like, versus missional community, which is different, versus a Christian serving because that's what Christians do, right? And those are three really, really different things, and they're all good, and there's a place for all of them, but they're three really different things, and it feels like that's probably the most important rebirth teaching congregation-wide for us to distinguish those, and all of us to kind of agree what we are for each thing. And so people know that's kind of what they're jumping into, what they're signing up for, what that feels like, what that looks like, and for that to be consistent. And really the most other kind of takeaway of like getting behind some of that theory that may have gotten lost is what do we do next? And again, that's not like a solve it today, but also that everyone feels permission and grace to just say, this is not what I signed up for, right? That's been a common theme for the last couple of years. And so people that have taken over leadership or taken over groups or jumped into groups, and it wasn't what you thought you were getting into, and like your heart and your passion and your love of Jesus or love of people keeps you coming, but it's not. And when we get to the little activity that we're going to do, we're going to talk about if it feels unfulfilling, this is why. So I'm going to bring Becky up to talk a little bit about to, for, and with. And if you want to take some notes on your sheet, or if you want to just sit and absorb it all, do we have papers for her?
For who? Oh, for, yeah, they're like lying around in different places. So I want to let everybody know first that, because I think a lot of people were aware that I was with my mother who had COVID, and I have done my quarantine, and I tested negative on Friday, so I feel like it's okay for me to be here today. And I am a huge believer in all these precautions, by the way, because I lived with her for 10 days of contagion, so yeah, keep it up. So I want to take just a minute, though, to start with just reading a little scripture that we're all familiar with, particularly people who are really called to do missional work. And as I read through the Beatitudes, I just want you to think about yourself as well as the people that you're serving with. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God, children of God. And blessed are they that have been persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So I think it was like 8 or 9 years ago, Phil thought it would be a brilliant thing for Missy and I to go to Ethiopia and Kenya together, because we were going to look out for each other and keep each other out of trouble. So the first place we went was this girls' school in Kibera, which is one of the biggest slums in the world. And we went to this school and we met this class of girls that were just beginning. They were equivalent of 9th graders in this high school. And we took them out. We got a little tour getting into where they lived and where the school was. And then we went out to this tiny little piece of grass by this big water tank to just visit with them. And that first day, nobody really said a word to us. No, actually, I think the first day we were in the classroom. The second day, we were like, no, let's go outside. And then we came back the next day, and then we came back the next day. And by the third day, there was one girl who was, a 9th grader, and she came up to us and she said, I'm really worried about a friend of mine. Will you pray for her? And so we thought she was talking about herself, but she actually was talking about a friend. And so she told us the story about the abusive situation that this young woman was living in. And so we got together with this girl, and our friend Immaculate was the one who was asking us to pray for her friend who was in her hijab. There we go. So this school has Christians and Muslims together studying, learning. And so we kind of stopped for a minute and said, how do you want us to pray? And she said, just pray however you pray. And so we prayed, and we, of course, Missy and I are like sobbing, and, as we're praying with these two girls. And so fast forward to today, Habiba has now finished her graduate degree. She's actually finished her bachelor's degree and is looking for work. They're both like 23 now. Immaculate has been working in the restaurant industry, but now she's expecting her first child at 23, which is pretty phenomenal. And so we keep in touch with them. And then we were whisked away to Ethiopia and paraded with all these different groups where we were taken around, and everything we were shown was sterilized. We were told about the problems. We were told about the poverty. We were told about HIV/AIDS. I think they just kind of threw that sentence in regularly. They just said it. I don't even know what they were necessarily doing. And we didn't get to meet anybody until we finally said, we'd like to meet people. We'd like to actually know, somebody's situation. And so we were taken to a photo shoot, and it was at this sanctuary. It was a pretty sparse, but very nice. And outside, they had all these families coming in the worst clothing that they had, to take the pictures. Right? You know the pictures, right? The ones where they give you the thing and they say, don't put that under your seat because then that person's not going to get helped, right? And they give us this one person. If we don't say yes to sponsoring this child, then that child is going to starve. And so we sign up and we give our monthly donations and we care about the well-being of that child, but it's often not really telling that child's true story. It's looking at what we're going to talk about next, which is what can we do to and for this person? And we look at it from a perspective of pity rather than a perspective of empowerment. So we clearly decided that we really wanted to partner with the organization that was run by the people who live in Kibera. It was started by a man and his grandmother and a friend of mine, now is a friend of mine, who just saw that there was capacity there to build and grow and do this thing that the people there were saying, we want to do this thing. We want to teach our girls. And we know it's important to teach our girls because when we invest in our girls, they invest in the community. They come right back and invest in the community. So when we come at our mission work from the perspective of humility, then we're going to be able to develop real relationships. There's not the us and them. We're not us, they're not them, it's not the other, it's a we, it's an us together. And we come at it with humility, that we recognize that we're also ones that struggle and suffer sometimes too and don't have all the answers, and maybe need to learn as much as we're, even more than we're getting ready to offer. And it allows us to develop authentic relationships. So we'll start with the two, everybody can, no, I don't think so. I was gonna write 2, 4, and with, but I think people probably can remember those things in their minds. Okay. Okay. So when we think of doing 2, and these are kind of these gender archetypes, but 2 tends to be paternalistic. We've got power, and we're doing something we're giving something to somebody. We're providing wisdom to somebody. And so it becomes this power struggle, this power where one person is up and the other person is down. And we see that, we've been seeing that for generations in mission work, that people will come in, do something to a group, and then kind of disappear. That's one of the things that JP talked about in our discussion today, that so much of mission work is sprinkling and then leaving. Then the second one, preposition, is for. And this one tends to be kind of considered more maternalistic, again, an archetype there, that we're doing something for people. And often that can be, again, a power dynamic or an assumption that we would be able to do that thing better for that person than that person could do for themselves. And it creates a codependence rather than an independence or an interdependence. And so when we look at the with, that's a much, much more difficult place sometimes for us to be because it requires us to be a little more vulnerable. It requires us to be in, with, together, down deep with the people that we're serving. It requires us to actually be in relationship with people and to really know them and to recognize that we get enriched also when we allow ourselves to be with somebody else. And it allows more empowerment and reciprocal learning. And I tell you, this is tough stuff because, obviously in a lot of the work we're doing, there is still going to be 2 and 4. In the Matumaini MC, where we have been mentoring a family that spent 20 years in a refugee camp and then came to the United States and have very little language services available to them, like we were talking about earlier. Absolutely. And we struggled with this. We struggled with, what are we doing to? What are we doing for? How much are we doing for them? Are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? We talked about it. We cried about it. I did. Really tried to figure out, what does it mean to be with? Because also, the paternalistic and the maternalistic can come from a place of power, privilege, and position. And we do have that. We have a lot of capacity here. And we want to be sharing the resources that we have. But we have to be able to recognize that with that, comes a lot of responsibility because we have to engage our own learning and about ourselves in regards to our power, privilege, and positionality. Does anybody have any questions about those three terms? Yeah. Right. Right. So I'm going to repeat some of that for people who are online. Andrea was talking about we can avoid this 2 and 4 if we approach everybody that we're meeting as Jesus. And we lose it. We lose that if we are not approaching everybody we meet as Jesus. Like that Jesus in them. Am I summarizing that?
Right, Jesus is as much in them.
Yes. Absolutely. And we're experiencing Jesus through them.
They serve us and we serve them.
Yeah. They serve us and we serve them. The reciprocal relationship. Absolutely. All right. So a couple of places that you can find more about this. We read this great book probably 5 or 6 years ago called Down We Go by Kathy Escobar. If anybody wants to type that into the chat, that could be helpful too. It's Escobar. Called Down We Go, and she really talks very deeply about all these things that I'm talking about briefly today. Then I also, in the thank you discussions that we've been having, we've also used a text called The Trouble I've Seen by Drew G.I. Hart, and he really, in our last discussion, we talked about that kind of mission that just comes into a community and assumes that they know best for what's best for that community and then leaves the community and doesn't recognize the value of the individuals that are already trying to build up their own communities. So I'd also recommend The Trouble I've Seen by Drew G.I. Hart, and it's Hart, H-A-R-T. Okay. All right, these are a bunch of great little notes that I wrote last night because I wasn't sure if I was going to be back. So I really wanted to be here today, and Phil came and got me from Arkansas, and we drove back 14 hours yesterday because I believe so strongly in our capacity. I know that right now we're working hard to heal hurts and fractures that we've had, and so we've really focused on this idea of engaging with each other. So we have all these opportunities to engage together, and continuing to try to have worshipful experiences for people in sanctuary and at home. And so we'll continue to do that and heal in that way and grow in that way. I just don't want us to lose what we've had in regards to our capacity and our ability to go out and serve. It's the second part of our statement, to touch the lives of others. That's why we're all here right now, is that we understand that we have the call and we have the capacity to touch the lives of others. Anybody have any thoughts, questions, anything else you'd want to add about these concepts? All right, I will repeat that, or you can use it.
How about anyone that wants to share an example from their group? And it doesn't have to be in the last year, but 2 to 4 quick, like where that was a struggle, where you started seeing that transformation from 2 or 4 to with, or where things got pulled up for you, or.
Okay, so Missy's asking for people to share any of the experiences they've had in terms of the 2 and the 4 and the with, where there's been successes and where there's been some struggles. And I will wipe off and pass the mic around if people want to do that. And if anybody online wants to type in or send a message to Missy, we'll share that too. Did we hear that? Oh, gotcha. Excellent. That's right.
Well, I just want to talk about when we were mentoring this refugee family from the Congo, I think it was inevitable that we would start at maternalistic. I don't think that it was necessarily a bad thing, I just think it was a necessity. Because you had a family, I always describe what would it feel like for me to be dropped on the moon. I mean, they never used a microwave before, they didn't have a refrigerator. And I was just telling Becky today that I went over there one day, and I'm looking at all these cans, because we'd taken them to some food pantries to pick up provisions before. And I'm looking at all the cans, and I said, do you guys have a can opener? And they said, what's a can opener? And so I went out and bought them a can opener, and I showed them how to use it, and they went, oh. I mean, just the things that we had never thought about, because it's just something that you just assume everyone has a can opener. Everyone knows how to use a can opener. Everyone knows how to use a stove and an oven. They were putting, frozen foods in the cabinet. They didn't, and trying to just communicate to them, and communication was a big issue. And I never realized that they were actually, the language that they speak, but amongst themselves, is not Swahili, it's their tribal language, yes, which I was always trying to use the app on Swahili, which they do speak Swahili, but anyway, trying to use the apps for communicating weren't working out very well. They would always give us puzzled looks whenever we try to use those. But just having the communication barrier and having a family come that had absolutely no knowledge of life in America, no knowledge of driving, no knowledge of how to get around, and you really had to kind of take them by the hand and be a bit maternalistic and work towards the with. So I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing to do the maternalistic, or maybe a little bit of the paternal, mama, daddy, whatever, because I just think it was a necessity, because their needs were just way up here. And to bring them down to a level where you could more walk with them instead of constantly being their guide, and then trying to figure out where that line is between helping and hurting, because you're helping them too much and you're not allowing them to progress in your relationship to the with, and also to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Because my instincts are to help people. I want to be there. I'll help you. I'll help you. I'll help you. But helping can also be hurting, and realizing where that line was between helping and hurting was very important in our journey along the way. So, anyway.
Very well said, Jean. That it was kind of this constant discussion, right, about that. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
Mm-hmm. The best.
Yeah.
Right? And as your consistency pays off, right? Can somebody, we won't care on the spot again, but somebody who's been part of Mac Money for a little bit?
I think you're right, Miss. It is a group that's done a great job with the with. I don't know. Obviously, because you are giving food to people, right? And doing that for people, but there's this whole other level.
Yeah, girl.
There we go. Okay, do you want your own new clean wipe?
I think one of the situations that points really well to the with is when we arrive at the park. We pull up and I'm a wanderer, sorry. We have all our supplies in the back of our car. And there's always a group of people that come in, we greet and we hug and we chat about how their day is. But they get the supplies out of the car. They take the supplies down to the pavilion where there used to be tables for us to set up. And if one of the group isn't willing to serve the people that they're with, we just wait until one of them volunteers, because this is about with, and we're serving with the people in this community. And I think just draws us close to the people, because I don't think they feel like we're doing it to them. I think that they really embrace us, because they physically do embrace us. And we learn so much from them. And we spend so much time just chatting and getting to know their life stories. And to me, that is like one of the most empowering for me, is to see where these people have been, and now that they're with us, how they affect all of our lives. So I think that's a great story about the with.
Okay. Yep. I could see it was shiny, and I was like afraid of it because it was going to slip. Okay, so this is from Patsy about Project to Presence. She says, we have to build the relationships with our seniors for trust to blossom. It takes time, and sometimes that can be frustrating, but when we hang in there, the rewards are tenfold. We have to be careful not to assume what they need, right? And that is probably the biggest piece of missional living, of saying, right? And I think it's not a like thing that you arrive at and never struggle with it again. I think there's always that, I've seen so many things, I've done so much of this, and let me just tell you, I know what's best for you. And that's like that's not helpful, for sure not helpful for the folks that we are serving with. But it's not helpful for us either to play that like, let me come in and rescue all the things role, right? It completely cuts off exactly what Andrea was talking about allowing the relationship to be mutually transformative, to come in and say, I want to hear from you what you have, what you need, what you want, and not like, let me come in with all the answers for you, right? That's, oh, wait, Patsy texted something else. She said it takes time for them to feel comfortable to share their lives with us. And so I think, especially for all you guys that talked about the consistency and the trust and relationship that's been built in your group, right? That's some of that payout, is that when you're consistent, not only with each other and the group that your missional community, but also consistent in your mission, right? Then you can move from 2 to 4 to with, and there's always probably going to be, right? It's fluid, but the possibility of really dwelling in that place more consistently of with the folks that you are ministering alongside, yeah, it's just it's that place so much more consistent. And okay, did you have more things? Yeah, come on up. Thank you.
At least we can get him again, huh? Yeah. You got to look for the small blessings, right? So Rick has been pretty active text messaging, so he's online watching. And this might come up later, but he was asking about, are we going to continue to call these groups missional communities, or is it time to rename that as well? So that probably comes up later in our discussion. And then the part about to, for, and with, I've got a couple things to share about that too, but Rick asks if there is a way that we can help people learn this, because it's not an easy thing to learn. It's not so natural sometimes, especially coming from whatever backgrounds we come from. So he was maybe asking for us to think about some teaching on that. So let me know if there's something else you wanted, Rick. And then I wanted to share personally, our family has done a lot of outreach just with people we have been involved with, and some of these relationships are coming up on 15 years, and they've become family, and some of you have met them with us and joined in and helping along the way. And I find it interesting that 3 of the groups I'm thinking about, it's very important to them that they feel like family. They call us their family, and they'll talk about, we want to be part of your family. And while that's beautiful, it's also a little hard with some boundaries. So we have struggled with, okay, we're so with that maybe we've gone a little too far. And so that's a constant learning for us as well. So that might be something we can do some teaching around too. And here he is with another message. Get it to come up. Of course, it doesn't recognize me with my mask on. Okay. Oh, he says perfect. So I guess I shared what he wanted me to share. One thing I wanted to share about the kind of 2-4 with our group, specifically the Healing Prayer Group, is that I think people do come into it thinking we have something special, and we don't feel that way at all. In fact, most of us feel ill-equipped to, we've learned how to not feel that way a little better, but I think most of us just kind of feel that way, like, oh my gosh, who are we to do this? But we're just being the conduits. It's Jesus doing the healing. But I think a beautiful example of changing from that mentality of 2 and 4 into with is a member of our group really connected with a person that started coming regularly for healing prayer, and it morphed into that person feeling so broken and almost undeserving of the healing prayer that it morphed into our member having them pray for them. And so it became this, you are just as well equipped to do healing prayer for me as, like, we don't have that power thing here. It's God, it's Jesus, it's our triune God. We're on a level ground. But it took time for that same thing that Patsy was talking about, that trust and that time to build up that relationship. So you might not think there was a place for that kind of within just a healing prayer, but there really is in all avenues.
Yeah, it is. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share about the experiences with the 2, 4, and with? The other thing I was remembering that Drew Hart talks about in his book, Trouble I've Seen, is one of his chapters is called Don't Go With Your Gut. And his book is about racial conciliation within the church. And because if we kind of go with our gut, we're really kind of missing finding out what somebody else's gut is telling them, what, the impacted people, what it really is that experience, not what we think somebody's experience might be. All right, anything else before I turn it over to Missy for the next piece? All right, thank you.
Hey, Reverend Tampa Bay, do you want to chime in at any point? I don't want to just ignore you. You're learning. I love it. Thank you. Okay. So, is everybody okay? Are you getting tired? This is so nap time for me. It's only because I'm running around that I'm even hanging in here with you guys. So if you need to stand up, stand up. If you want to walk around your little area, walk around your little area. And I think because, so everyone say, hi, Patsy. Hi, Patsy. Everyone say, hi, Rick. Hi, Rick. And everyone say, hi, Marilyn. Hi, Marilyn. And if anyone else is watching us right now, please type, and then Kate will tell me that you're on. And Marilyn, I know you're just watching, and I know you are full of all the wisdom. So if you have anything to say, type it to me. Or to someone else who's not, actually don't type it to me now because now I'm not on my phone. Type it to Jackie. She'll be the spokesperson. Okay. So you all got, and Kate, I'm gonna hold it like this and see if you can zoom in for a second. And what I will do is send the PDF of this to you guys too so you can forward it to your friends in your group. But this was, oh, okay. Becky is going to write for me, and you'll be able to read it better. We were in huddle together with Ann Campbell, who's, a brilliant educator, and I would always write on the board, and I write too big, I write too loopy, and I would start in one corner, and then and she, exactly what Bill Owens is doing. Ann Campbell would sit in huddle and go like, and kind of like, let me help you with how we divide the board in education so that you don't fill all this side and then write the important things right down there on the bottom. I'm worse at it than I was back then, so I'm blocking you. I'm way bigger in front of the board than you. Kate, follow me this way a little bit. I'll do this, and that way you can see Becky. So So this was a really valuable teaching tool back in the day. And so how many of you have seen this before? Oh, you're kidding. Wow. Okay, I have been, so I want to apologize for that. That's really sad. And totally on us for, like, when we picked this up. And maybe that wasn't like a universal, but across the state, like Tig may have been like, I don't even like that thing. I fell in love with this when it was first taught to me, and I used it for years with the kids and in confirmation. And so our kids know it, I think, really well about, and what it is kind of a tool for discovering your missional heartbeat or your missional sweet spot. Okay, I don't want to keep holding this up. So there it is for our friends at home. And it starts by, it's really an important self-assessment tool. It's not really meant to be like something that you use as your group. It's a great thing to do kind of before you're at this stage, right? And so that's why I think it's probably very valuable now for everyone in our groups, and then probably to teach this congregationally, or, I love the idea of what Rick said about, gosh, it would be so great to do some teaching on 2, 4, and with, that'd be awesome. We could do like a book study on Down We Go and have people just engage in that conversation. But I think that this helps shape what I was saying at the beginning of, am I looking for a spiritual family on mission? Am I looking for a missional community? And this starts to scratch at some of what Rick was saying, like what should we call what we are? Or am I just looking for a way to be a servant in the world when I get the itch? And I think that the way that you can really assess where you're being drawn has a lot to do with this. I just think so much personal assessment helps us in the world. Like, the more that we kind of check in with ourselves, the more we evaluate what we've walked through, where we want to go. If we're constantly doing that, then the chances of feeling like I'm being filled by the things I'm doing and not just pouring out to empty, right? Especially in missional pursuits, especially in the missional walk of looking like Jesus. So that we're not just saying yes because there's a huge need and somebody has to say yes, or we're not just saying yes because I'm all stirred up about this thing on the news or this thing on social media and I gotta act in that moment. And I don't even know if that's my thing. I'm just stirred up today, right? So a little background on that. But, and Becky's so good at attribute. I don't give people credit for anything. I don't even know who made this. I'm gonna find out because I didn't make it, but I don't know who did. So this tool, you start with real self-assessment on, and really I think the best place to start are problems, because that's often what is triggering your heart, making you feel sad, right? Often we get driven to mission because the problems of the world feel heavy on us. And again, it's really important to not just say, all the problems matter to me, because that's probably not true, right? And so to really figure out if you're not sure, a great way to start is what are the things that I know break God's heart? And if you don't know the answer to that, there's this thing that we have called the Bible, and you can dig in there and see the things throughout Scripture that break God's heart. And so especially if your missional walk is that you're trying to live a Jesus-shaped life, you probably want to stay in that category, right? If it's just not the things that break God's heart and then break your heart, right? That's where we kind of want to go. And certainly things just all the things in social justice can be things for you. But I think, as with anything in our discipleship life, we have to know what to say no to so that our yeses can be the most powerful that they can be. And if you just say yes to everything that breaks God's heart in the world, and everything that kind of triggers you, you will not reach, I will say this with confidence, you won't reach that missional heartbeat spot, and you will be exhausted and beyond like your emotional capacity in the world, because we just can't. We're not designed that way. And I often have told people, the minute you start saying yes to everything, you are taking the opportunity away from, that's somebody else's thing, right? And not that there's not unlimited capacity in the world, but I mean, right, if we're the go-getter that's just always like, yes, 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 right? Like a lot of you guys are kind of on the newly revamped worship volunteer schedule. So imagine if I had sent that out, and Bonnie is like my new favorite email friend because she replies to me in like 5 minutes with these beautiful answers all the time. But imagine if Bonnie, who has such a heart for Trinity, and was like, you sent that and it was totally empty. And if she just put her name in on everything for the next 3 weeks, right? She's gonna assist and lecture and take the temperature because she's a nurse, and right, she's gonna do all the things. And then Karen opens the email maybe a week later, and there are no spaces. Because Bonnie, out of her love and compassion, says yes to everything, right? Like, you get me? Like, there were days, you guys that have been here long enough with us, where the connection sheet would go around, and by the time it got to the back row, there was nothing left to sign up for. And while that's a great problem to have, if we blow that up to like missional living, that's a big problem to have, right? And it's not good for you. It's not like the best you in the best place of your gifts, your passion. So, yes, ma'am. Wait, is it a big talk? Should I give this to you?
No.
Or I hold it?
No. Oh, yeah, you can just paraphrase. Oh, I was just going to say, I think as leaders, too, we also need to not always ask those people that tend to say yes, because we get in that pattern, too, instead of looking for broader group, people we might not even know that have that passion or that drive.
Right.
So it's on both sides.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, asking the question of new people, asking people that aren't the obvious choice, right? That's a great reminder. Okay, so back to our little grid. So start with, what, and you may really know, like you may have done enough of this work in your own head, in your own heart, that you can say like, oh, the list of the problems that break my heart in this world that I'm struggling with, that I know I want to make an impact with, I can list that off like that, right? The other thing that is so important in this category is you kind of identify what's in that circle for you, is also to think or do a little research about who, and that's what kind of the network or neighborhood is. For this thing that breaks my heart, is anybody already doing this? Like, do I have to reinvent the wheel? And probably 99% of the time, the answer is going to be what? No, yep. That there's so many people who have amazing heart and love Jesus and care about the world. Like, this is not a new idea that started last week, so there's probably a place that before you even do the rest of the work, which I'm not saying do, but if you're just like, oh, this thing is so heavy on me, and I need to do something about it right now, if you use the Google on your machine, you can probably find someone that's doing that, and at the very least, get some information, get some learning. Send them $20 because, right, all of our friends in nonprofits right now, like a little $20 gift is like gift from heaven. So, discern the problems that really like break your heart. Do a little research to kind of see what else is being done about it. And that's just kind of periphery to the circles, okay? Then step back from that and just do a little bit of like, okay, now that the heaviness has been identified, what I really want to know is what brings joy to me. And not unlike who's the closet lady that's like, if it doesn't bring you joy, just get rid of it. Who's that girl? Yeah. This is a little bit of that, right? And especially me, because there's a lot of things that bring me joy, and I can say yes to like a million things. So I have to have like layers of joy, right? Like real joy and kind of like general happiness, joy-ish, right? And so then I probably have to scoot those over because, again, it's like, how do I say the more important yes? But really listing off, like, what am I passionate about? What, like, totally fires me up? And at this point, it doesn't have to, there's no connection between circle 1, circle 2, circle 3, okay? It's just what brings me joy. So let me give you just a quick examples, because, one, although I'm not in the Fostering Hope missional community, things about foster kids constantly break my heart. If I didn't, what brings me joy, I've discovered, is not having children living at my house anymore. I didn't know that. And so, literally, I'm not kidding you, probably once a month, I think, we have empty bedrooms. I should be a foster parent. And then I come home and I go, I don't have to cook for anyone. I don't have to. So my selfishness says, no. There's other people that can, right? Is that true? Correct. What I do is, right now, I really support people I know that are doing foster care, right? And some of those girls who I've met through Soul Care have 13 people at a time. So I'm praying over them every single morning that they don't crack, that they've opened their house to 13, who does that? It's my heart times 400. But then, God brings Laura Moody into our congregation, right? And she invites me to the Fostering Hope lunch. And I keep hearing, so God keeps triggering me on, dang it, please don't ask me to be a foster parent, because I just think the answer is no. But here's a passion that I have that I use and then I put on the shelf, and I use and I put on the shelf, but I love photography. I love photography. I love using my camera. I love capturing people, especially people who don't think don't take my picture, I don't think I look good, I love doing that. And I have loved reaching out to some of our kiddos who are I don't really want to do senior pictures, and I don't like how I look, and trying to do that, right? And helping them through my camera see themselves the way that God sees it. That's something I'm committed to, and bringing out everyone's beauty, because it has nothing to do with do you actually look good on camera, right? It's getting them to tell their story. And so, now that's a teaser, so let's go to the third thing, right? So if I was filling out the circle, that's just 2 of my things. One of the problems, foster care. My camera, photography, right? And I love kids. That's something I'm passionate about too. I love loving on kids and getting to know their stories and spending time with them, right? So you see, and then you just keep going. You write 40,000 things if you want. Then possessions, which is the part of this little graphic I like the least. And this was the thing of whoever made this, everything should be alliteration. Because I think that's a weird word. I would probably not use possessions, but I'm so caught in it, I don't know what I would use. But it's resources, I think, are the better word, because it's not really about what you possess. This is that where your Google research swings up of, Fostering Hope actually exists. They do stuff with foster kids. So I don't have to make a new organization for foster kids, right? That's a resource, or again, possessions is a horrible word, but that goes in that category. Or Laura Moody is, in my circles, Laura Moody would be a possession I have. I own a camera. I have editing software. I have a computer. I have time almost every Saturday right now. Let's just even say right now, so that we can stop the things we can't do during COVID conversation. Every Saturday, because we hardly ever get to do real youth ministry anymore, is pretty wide open. And I'm not trying to get into a football game that I'm not supposed to go to or whatever. But my Saturdays are open. Most people are pretty comfortable being outside, especially if I'm playing my circle game, if I'm standing back and taking pictures at. You see where I'm going with this? So, and it just keeps going, right? I also have my husband who's super supportive of if I need time and he needs to do something, but some people don't have that, right? Some people are single, and you maybe say, well, what I have is this though, and I have these friends who love to do this thing with me, or they just love me. That's actually a resource. So I've got a group of people who will kind of, they just love me. Pause real quick, right? This is spiritual family on mission. They don't actually have to love foster kids. if that's my missional heartbeat, if they just love me and they want to spend time with me, they will probably come support that maybe once or twice, or maybe they'll discover, oh, I actually love that. But do you see the difference? So that's spiritual family on mission, right? That we are drawn together, we have this relationship, maybe it's a new relationship, but we come together around some common threads, but it doesn't have to be common mission, okay? So I put all these circles together, and then I see what is the convergence. And if I'm really doing this activity, I take like hour, and then I list, right? So I zoned in on foster care, but when I've done this before, and like when we've done it with the youth group kids, they take an hour on a retreat to just list all the things. And then you look with your words all over this page and say, okay, where is there obvious convergence? And so for me, that's one of those things. I feel like God is saying, you better get your camera out. You make a contact with someone like Fostering Hope. A lot of foster kids do not get portraits or senior pictures done. And so what if you just made that available for free? I'm going to just spend an afternoon with you, reminding you how beautiful you are, how God sees you. And I want to hear your story, right? That's the with. I want to hear your story. I want to know as much as you're willing to tell me. And I probably can't do that on day one, like just march in there and be like, hey, right? So it's a little bit of spending some time and spending to open up that trust that they're going to be willing to do this. But then I go, take pictures, and provide that for them so that it's something that they might not have otherwise, right? And it does not drain me because it is the missional heartbeat of the convergence of those things. And so when I say yes to that, and I'm honoring all those things, then it doesn't feel like I'm out of sync. I'm just doing this because somebody has to say yes. You know, it's a service project and there weren't enough people come, right? All those things, yeah? Okay. I'm gonna breathe for a second. Questions? Not one question. Does it make sense? Yes, okay. And do you, and you can say like, no, I don't actually like this game. Do you see the validity in doing that? That it kind of pumps the brakes on maybe where we are right now, asks everyone to do a little bit of work of like, who really am I as a missional person? And what am I craving next? Because I think that is so important for each person beyond what we kind of announce or do for Trinity, right? Like all our, because then we can say, we have groups for this, or, okay, so, sorry, I'm gonna pause. Questions, comments, because I was gonna launch back into kind of the three things, and then I think that's kind of the end of what we were gonna do today. Yeah. Wait, I want people to hear you. I'm gonna wave it. Huh? Oh, okay.
Okay. So I think that this is true that it pushes against what is a normal educational process within our society, in that we find a student or a child with a deficiency, and it's our job to teach to strengthen that deficiency, meaning Michael doesn't read well. Reading's important, and so we're going to help Michael read well, but maybe he, maybe he learns to read to the level at which he needs to learn to read, but he's a great mathematician, so we're going to give him lots and lots and lots and lots of math to strengthen the strength that that person has. And so it's operating out of strengths. And so I believe that God does the same thing to each of us, gives each of us strengths, and often we find ourselves trying to fix our deficiencies so that we get to some sort of base level, when really, when we find that thing that God has given us passion for, or we find that strength that God has placed inside of us, that's the place where we should be dumping that passion, dumping all of our energy in, because it actually
like you say, it doesn't exhaust you. It actually gives you even more fire and more passion in your life. So that God said to you, you know, deep down in some place, you're going to figure out at some point you really love photography. And that you stumbled upon photography in your life and said, I really find this interesting. I'm going to get things to do photography. And God now is saying, here are some avenues at which you can use this gift I've given you to help other people, be alongside other people, to bring light, my light, into the lives of other people, because you have this passion and it's meant to serve other people. And so I really think that that's what we're getting at, and I really think that that's what I want for the mission work that we do here, is that people are really finding those places that give them passion, that they're not just doing it because they feel like they have to fill in a gap, because God will take care of that stuff. God fills in the gaps. But that everyone finds those places that give them passion, and that becomes the places where they dump their heart and their soul into the work that we're doing here. And so it feels good when groups are saying, we're reevaluating what we're about and what we're going to do, because I think that's healthy too. I think you can only do something the same way for so long before God has operated in you, God is operating in the world around you, and you have to reevaluate everything that has happened in the world, because God's not stagnant. God is always moving. God is always changing environments around you for the betterment of all of God's people. And so God is saying to Trinity, it's time for us to be doing that reevaluating, to find those passions again.
That was Mike's TED Talk. It was really good. Of course, everything you say makes sense.
Along with your Venn diagram. Okay. But I was just thinking, while everyone was talking about the 2, 4, and with, and the idea of community, and how as community within Trinity, we are stronger as we reach out, and how some people are afraid of, well, what if I'm just 2 and 4 focused and I don't hear the width? And but then some people have a more natural bent to listen and to see what the width will be. And so in community, I think there needs to be this sense of fluidness, that sometimes I'm going to be the 2 person, and sometimes I'm going to be the listening, and I'm going to be sharing and maybe telling a story about what we encountered, or that starts to open up other people's hearts to how to be with. Because I think that, for instance, with Mac Monday, I was afraid to go the first time. I was really afraid. I didn't know what to expect. Jean was super casual about it, like, it's nothing, it's no big deal. Kind of like she is, in a good way. But it was really easy once I was there. It was very easy to be with people and to listen to their stories. They really want to talk a lot and share their stories, and like eyes would light up when you were listening, and it was a very like energizing, passionate feeling that I didn't know that I would be able to experience. And the same with the Makosas. The first few times we went to their house, or I went to their apartment by myself, I was really afraid. How am I going to be with them? Is there something I can do for them? Can I take them somewhere? Can I bring them some new shoes? Or, but it was very easy to be with them. Even when we couldn't communicate super well, they were so loving, and they poured into us with their love, and then, that creates passion. And so the sharing of the stories, I think, is super important. And not everybody feels comfortable sharing stories about what they're doing, but I think as a church, it's super important if it's going to be successful.
Perfect. Jan, are you pointing? You want her to go first?
I'm going to get a clean one. Okay. So my question is, next step. In Mac Monday, we talked a lot about how the congregation really needs to be involved in everything we're talking about right now, and the types of, if we're going to continue calling them missional communities, but those groups of people that are working together. You know, how do we get the rest of the church involved? What's the next step?
Yeah, I think that's something we need to absolutely come back to before we wrap up today, for sure. I was back on the 3 Ps, the possessions issue, resources. I think that's a much better word. So I get super passionate about things, and you know, like there's lots of problems, obviously, that I want to address, and so my dilemma is that I don't have some very important resources to actually do some of the things. Like I get so excited, and I'm like, let's do this, we're gonna go do that, and then I don't actually organize the weekly or bi-weekly times, then you know, we all get together. I mean, and I do this professionally too. I've got like a real heart for the trauma that our communities are experiencing, and have started a trauma recovery network, but I'm just not, like I'm not a detail organized person. So when you were talking about, you know, when you said, well, Laura's kind of a possession in a way, like a resource, right? That I need to really figure out how to be a whole lot better. You know, Pastor Mike was talking about strengths, and Andrea was talking about how we all have different things that we're bringing in. I got to figure out how to be much better, if I'm going to do these things, much better about finding folks to help me organize and be detail-oriented, because that is not my strength. Does that make sense? So I can do all this whole thing, but then it doesn't, the follow-through's terrible. You see what I mean?
No, your follow-through's not terrible. It's that
Well,
you can't do
whatever.
all the pieces
Yeah.
that are necessary.
I just wanted to respond to Becky's comment. Maybe that's why the apostles were sent out in twos. We complement each other.
Absolutely right. I don't know where to hold to then also clean.
Thank you. Marilyn had a comment that it would be good for our group to do this exercise together. I think we have the need to evaluate this personally, but also in a group too. And so it would be a good tool to use. So that was Marilyn's input. And then as I'm thinking about it, and I had a theme that's been coming up a bit lately for me in processing this, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so engaged with some of these families, and the relationships are so deep. How do I step back so I have time to pursue this new thing? Because those relationships are deep. They think they're family. Yeah, so how do I not completely, I mean, obviously boundaries, but I'm a little bit struggling with, and I've been feeling a little emptied lately, actually. So it's all very timely, but what do I do with those relationships that have evolved over 15 years?
Okay, my mind is spinning about all those questions, so I want to say just a couple things. Not that I think I have answers for everything, but okay, the first thing I'm going to say is about what Marilyn said. I actually believe it's detrimental to do this as a group, because I think what happens is, like in our existing groups right now, I would maintain that there are some folks who are hanging in there because they love you. Let's just use you guys, because you guys are a spiritual family, and they love this group, and they love prayer, but they don't know what they think about the mission, and so they're feeling guilty about, well, I'm not going to step back because I don't want people to think that I don't love Jackie or that I don't love prayer. Your group has the added component of, if we stop doing this, people will starve. That's the story they're telling themselves. Is it true? It is not true, right? I don't remember which one of you were in the other day and said, oh, I've heard that Marian House is actually doing stuff every night, and Rescue Mission is actually doing stuff every night. And so we have to take wherever that is dwelling in of like, wow, it's probably a little bit of like, we've been doing this so long, and it is very important work. But does the world come to an end if we say it It has lived its lifetime. And so the important thing is not to all of a sudden not show up next Monday and be like, hey, we had this revelation, peace out. Right? You walk back out of that relationship, you do some kind of a blessing, and maybe, and that's why I'm going to say that I don't think doing this as a group is helpful. Because only Marilyn can say, this is what I need, this is my heartbeat at this moment. And so I have to decide for me, and I have to say the brave, I'm in or I'm out, or I'm partially in, about that, or about Mac Monday, and then slowly step out and celebrate my time with you, and celebrate my time with the friends at the park. And it may be that Jean, all of a sudden, she's kind of new to Mac Monday, and she's like, well, I'm not ready to give that up yet. I just joined on. Like, y'all are quitting now, and I just showed up. But that doesn't mean that she can't still find, if that's her heartbeat right now, we're going to find a way for Jean to have a place to live out that missional heartbeat, right? Now, to what Bonnie said, because that is so important, that's like why missional communities are created, right? Because we believe that we cannot or should not do the work of Jesus alone because it's in the Bible that we're not supposed to, and we know it by living it. And so I actually don't believe this. Whatever your missional heartbeat is, even as Trinity our numbers have come down, I would bet whatever your missional heartbeat is, Beck, if you just you guys like, I'm just looking for someone to do some trauma stuff with me, it requires being bold. You might have to post on Facebook. You might have to send an invite to your friends. Your friends, you have to say, I really only want you to say yes if this is also your thing. Not because you love me, but because this is your... So that's missional community life, right? Of like, I'm looking for people who have this as their missional heartbeat. Who wants to join in? And it doesn't actually matter if I like you or don't like you, because that's where God does some work, right? Of like, these are people joined together around this core, serving my purpose. If you guys get on each other's nerves, I bet God can actually heal that thing, okay? But that's that entity. The other entity is Becky calling me and saying, we have journeyed life together and I rescued your child, so you owe me one. I'm not kidding, right? Like, our people, like, Becky knows who she calls if, like, 3 kids just killed themselves this week, and I gotta do something about it, and I need you now. That's spiritual family, right? You call your people and say, if this is not your heartbeat, it's not every Monday for the next 15 years. It's right now, I need you, and maybe the specific ask of like, oh wait, Jackie's a nurse, Missy's a youth director, and I'm a therapist, and I probably need like some big man just to, so I'm gonna call Mike. And just like, and he's gonna access the boys because it can't be just these 3 girls. Like, we gotta have somebody that the dudes feel comfortable talking to, right? And we know that we have that relationship, and I will tell Becky yes for anything, for a short time, not for 15 years. You get me? So spiritual family on mission, missional community sharing the same heartbeat. And then the last piece is, I can't remember who said, but it's that idea of, and I think it was probably stirred a little bit with what Andrea said of, but also the like, there's just work that has to be done, right? And most, oh, the 2 and 4 are gone. Okay, that there's always a place to start, and I'm just going to say that, like, this is true really about most of our congregations in America, but especially Trinity Lutheran, and it's what has defined our missional life long before we had missional communities, and that is a lot of us actually don't know. I mean, we know a lot more now, especially the more we dive into Facebook. But scoot us back 5 or 10 years, people could genuinely say, I don't know the problems you speak of. I don't, right? And that is what has shaped our youth mission trips for 2 decades, is we need to take our kiddos out of Monument to have their eyes opened so they realize that this is not a typical slice of life here, right? We need to see different things. We need to smell different smells. We need to go to places and experience firsthand the problems that most of us are not going to come across here. And so that is the benefit of just kind of Christian service. That sometimes there is Marion House may develop a connection with Karen or Jean, because they're like, as we gently walk out of the every Monday night thing, and Tracy has told us that she goes there every Thursday, so we're going to go there every Thursday because we love Tracy. Or maybe you go one Thursday a month or one Thursday a quarter to just gently come out, which is a little bit of it, right? Like, how do we bless what we've done, say, I'm still here for you, but I have to start stepping back because I think God's calling me to a slightly new thing. It's not that God's not calling me to you, but we're just both and, right? And so it may, and somebody that's like, man, I was going to start doing Macaroni Monday because it sounded cool and I wanted to do that. And then you guys closed up shop, and Karen can say, I'm actually going to Marion House in 2 months on Thursday. Would you like to come with me? Let's come and see from this morning, right? And it's that one-time little, let's just try it, so that they can experience problems, right? For the folks who literally like, I've kind of lived like this and I just don't even know, but I know God's stirring up something in my heart, but I don't have anything on that list, right? And we have to be catalysts to invite people on the journey with us, because it's way less scary when you go with a friend, which is why God did it that way. And it's way less scary when it's someone who's not just like, hey, the two of us are going together scared. It only feels a little less scary. When it's someone who's walked that path before, has connection, right? All of a sudden, it doesn't feel scary at all. I think it doesn't. Maybe it feels scary for some people, but that gets rid of any fear factor for me, is walking with someone who has done it before. Okay, and I'm going to hand it back to Becky. And so that's that, Karen, I would say that's that place of and I don't want this to sound like hard challenge, but we need the church to get behind this, can definitely be a kind of service project thing, but like to reinvigorate Mac Monday or anything like that goes against the whole kind of missional culture, because then you're just saying, we're all so blessed. Can't you guys care about the homeless people? And for some people that might not even make their list of problems and that's okay. It is okay, right? We're all allowed to have the thing that breaks our heart, and we can't carry all the heartbreaks of the world. But and I do think that there is, like, when Sue made the plea, like, that's a great, hey, the youth group kids who wanted to go out, that's a perfect out in the open air thing. And they could go 1 week, but like a week, right? To like plug in and to see and to expose. And so for any of us, some big cast the net and like, we just need more people to help this mission. It like undoes all kind of the work that Jesus laid out for us of how we get into living a missional life. Yes, absolutely. And then I'm gonna have you give it to Becky.
When I was talking about how do we get the church involved, I was actually talking about this diadem. And how do we get people to identify their passions and then begin to commit to some kind of work.
I have like about 10 words. I must be talking too much. So it sounds like there is a challenge or a suggestion for each of us to look at this diagram, at the Venn diagram, and really determine what the sweet spot is. And if missional communities want to keep having a discussion, though, about your own focus, I would actually recommend doing a 2-4 with discussion, because we know, like Jean was talking about, there are some things that are required to do 2 and 4. The Makosas would never have gotten green cards, for example, if Jean hadn't walked with them with and for over and over and over again. So having those discussions about what are the things that are absolute necessities in the 2 and the 4, and how do we know? How do we actually know that they are necessities that we do 2 and 4? Is it because they're asking, or is it because we think we know? Is it because we're asking? And then that last piece would be to ask ourselves, how much can we expand our with? What are we already doing? Where do we need to go from here to be, the upside down kingdom, right? That we were talking about in the beginning in the Beatitudes, that we are really asked to flip this over and not be striving to get to the top, but to be with people all over. So that would be I think we maybe do offer a challenge of saying, if you're going to do an activity together, try the 2, 4, and with, and see where that gets you. I know, I've been talking too much, or just wiping down this thing a lot.
I am so sorry I misunderstood you, but I think that is, it surprises me that, again, and that's like, I'm so apologetic that all of our key missional people who've been killing it for years, and somehow some of this has never like bubbled to the surface. It's embarrassing. But it excites me because I really do think it's revolutionary for kind of missional life, but I think it's also revolutionary for us. Like I'm telling you, we always kind of built this into the Jesus Says retreat. Any of you who had your kids were part of that. And the kids would say over and over, like, that was my favorite thing we did. And I know that there's kids who are young adults now who are doing things in the world and living missional lives that will say, like, I wrote that on my sheet 8 years ago, I mean, it gives me tingles to think about that, but it's a pretty easy thing and I don't think it's a once in a lifetime thing, right? Like, I redo it, like, usually once a year, just to kind of see what God is saying to me and realign some stuff. And so I would love, we can talk about, like, what would that look like, and whether you guys want to gather your missional communities. And I would love to come teach 2 more groups, or you can watch the recording, or we can snippet it, or and we can figure out ways to, but maybe for sure before we do any sort of a missional community relaunch Sunday, that we do some of this teaching congregationally and do some other Zoom groups or gather groups after worship, or for people that want to do that. I love it. Correct. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying. I think that's the best and really only way is for everyone to kind of do the work and then come together and say, so this is what I've identified as my missional heartbeat right now. Hear from everybody, like, is there some convergence there? Is God still calling us to stay together? Is God calling us to break a couple different directions? Is it this group is the trunk and there's these branches, right? It really feels like God's stirring about the care team and the prayer team, and there's all these like convergence and regrowth directions. It's really exciting, I think, but. Okay, anyone else? I don't want to, thank you for like hanging in and doing this with your Sunday afternoon. But anyone have anything they want to, one last word, one last aha, one last statement? Yes. Wait. I'm going to hand this to you. Jackie's going to get the final word, and then Jackie's going to close us in prayer. How about?
Okay, all right. Well, it feels like I better stand up for that then, so people can see my voice. Okay. But I have no better skills than any of you all. Y'all know that. That's my disclaimer. So how God teaches us in these moments. After I had said, I have these deep relationships with some of my outreach, and I've been working on some boundaries lately, but it's a little hard, but it made me think too, if there are groups that thinking, oh my gosh, if we don't keep going, then what? That's that power piece. God doesn't need us. Yeah. I mean, yes, we've been called to be there to do what we're doing in the moment, but he can do his work without, our particular group or each particular person, and not as an out, but as a growth and a, hey, you're maybe not as important as you think you are kind of moment. So anyway, that was my little aha. Anyone else have anything before we pray? All right. Put our hands together ethereally. Lord, we just come to you so grateful, so blessed, so humble. We appreciate your presence here, and we appreciate the work that you are doing in each one of us, and in Trinity, and in each group that's going to evolve as we go about. Lord, just help us to truly have our eyes and ears open to hear what you are calling us to do individually and together. Show us where there is that second or maybe 10 people to help us do this work, Lord, that we're not in it alone, that you are right there with us. Just help us to feel your presence and your guidance, and we just want to be your light in this world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, dear.
I don't have a wipe.
That's okay. All right, those of you who were online with us and hung in there the whole time, thank you. And thank you guys for being. I just want to say this thing because I was really inspired by what Becky said as you're heading out the door. I think there was actually 14 of us here total today because of Sue and Dave. But there were 12. JP and Diane were here, so there were 12 of us gathered here. And that's all that Jesus needed to completely transform the world, right? So if it feels overwhelming, like we're just getting the wheels, we can redesign missional communities, missional life in this church. The fact that you all could be here today, I don't take that lightly. So thank you. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you.